So 10 minutes here, we don't need more than that. In fact, let me just share a business here with you that we are already beginning to understand.
And this isn't about Netanyahu. I was reading Haaretz only a couple of days ago, 2 days ago. There was an opinion poll that shocked the core of me, shocked every bone.
I know the one you're talking about.
Sent shockwaves in my bones.
The majority of people in Israel think that the Palestinians should be removed from Gaza. Is that the one?
Yes.
Yeah.
83.
I was shocked.
83%.
Yeah, I found that shocking.
83% of a society wants to annihilate another society. The genocidal genes in Israel is very scary for them before us. For them before us. And in the same poll, more than half of the Israeli people want to get rid of non-Jewish citizens of the state of Israel. The Palestinian Christians and Muslims in Israel. What kind of a society? When people talk about Netanyahu is the product of a society that has completely and utterly shifted not only to the right, but to the extreme,
I don't disagree with you.
fanatical.
If we want to talk about women's rights, let's talk about more like their social economic status rather than just what they're wearing.
Let's talk about nuclear weapons.
Okay.
Our viewers, some of our viewers may say, we cannot trust Iran. What are your thoughts?
I mean, I don't think we can trust this country. I mean, what has this country done to the majority of the countries in the Middle East? You know, like, I don't think Iran's having nuclear weapons. I'm a pacifist. I don't believe in violence. But also, when we look at the legacy of imperialism and colonization in the Middle East, and we see the legacy of this country and all of the violence that it has not only created, but also created the capacity for. A lot of these weapons in the Middle East are completely brought in by the United States.
A lot of Americans might take offense to that. You're an American. You don't sound like an American when you say that. You know what I mean?
That's because I've read, you know, and I think that it's really important that we look beyond sort of these really simple narratives that we're told, whether it's about Muslim women, whether it's about the legacy of this country, and knowing that this country literally was built on the
intelligence community has said they have no evidence that they are at this point.
Well, then my intelligence community is wrong. Who in the intelligence community said that?
Your director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard.
She's wrong.
Well, let's look at this beautiful blue planet, shall we? Let's look at this beautiful blue planet that we already begin to understand what is happening. Leandro Lenio Johnson, he is convinced that by Monday at the latest, and most likely this weekend, the United States will attack Iran. The distance between the two countries is very large, but going through the north, it even decreases. Two countries here. 830 kilometers. Separates the two countries, right? It's good. Anyway, let me get closer to Iran so we can see some things. First, there are a lot of people who are worried. So let's start with this important aspect. Russia does not have a formal defense agreement like Iran. And China is just a little bit of a collaboration agreement and helps a lot, but not just a defense agreement. So I should remind you one thing, the following. India is out of this equation because India has taken a neutral stance. Perfect. But China and Russia are not letters. And let me explain why. As you can see, Russia has no exit to the Indian Ocean, but passing through Iran, it's only 1,200 kilometers to the Indian Ocean, the Persian, right? China needs a lot of oil. It is the largest industrial production machine. It is the largest economic machine on this planet. It doesn't need energy. It doesn't need oil, gas. So leaving China, to the nearest point in Iran, the distance is 1,042 kilometers, right? Both the closest distance between South and Iran, only 1,142 kilometers up a little more because you have the way, two possible routes, one through Afghanistan, right? By the famous passage, that really right passage, one through Afghanistan to the Iranian northeast, Masad, second largest city in the country, has more than 3.5 million inhabitants, and another passing through Pakistan right to Iranian Baluchistan. Which is homology are Iranian, so there are two possible paths that connect China with Iran. Afghanistan stands with Iran, and Pakistan, despite Western claims, loves declaratory journalism. Pakistan is too. So there's another point here. On the one hand, Iran was a country that this helped from the beginning, right? And it's an important way of connecting with the Indian Ocean. That's a relevant point. Only military cooperation does not exist. It is not because Russia did not want it. It is because Pagestian. I don't know if he's an imbecile or a traitor. I didn't want to. I wanted to please the United States. I was afraid to remember the United States. I was afraid, or liberal, right? Or moderate. Anyway, now, in the case of China, the question is more practical. Why is there no land connection between Asia, Eurasia, and Asia? Because of this country here, disappearing, occupied. The state of Israel, then land connection between Asia is simply when the Americans determined the borders of the Israeli state in 1948, they took each other into account. We create the state of Israel. And at the time I was thinking about the Soviet Union, right? For the Soviet Union not to also have a possibility of land connection with Africa, then Europe also not to have land connection from Africa. Has the goal of the United States, the United Kingdom, and the State of Israel always been to prevent an inland connection from Africa? At the time, most of the Jews lived in Galilee. They included the Negev, who never went to the site of the Israeli nor had Jewish settlers. Here is a region that is inhabited by Palestinians. Negev is inhabited by Bedouin Arabs. The Palestinians are an ethnic group partly descended from the ancient Canaanites, who in turn descend from a mixture of the Mlatafian culture with populations coming from the mountains of Iran and populations coming from the Caucasus, which is a Mlatafian culture. More ancient populations from the late Pleistocene, Linda's Caucasus, and Iran mixed and created the Canaanites. The recipe of the Semites, right? The rebels were a Canaanite tribe. That's the point. But the Palestinians are descended from the Hebrews. We've talked a lot about this. The Palestinians descended from the Zebrews, but the Palestinians do not occupy the Negev. Okay, no one is in this one. Says that it answers to around 60% of Israeli territory, just until I draw a band here to make it easier to visualize, okay? Yeah, it's actually a polygon option, right? But it's here, so this track here, the Sud Mersheba is true, let's get it here, this here, This Sud Mersheba track that goes all the way to Geled Harbor, right? Hey, you see? It's not a triangle, is it? So you can see it's a trapezoid. It's a trapezoid of about 11,500 square kilometers. And this right here is the Negev. Historically, Palestinians did not live in Geth. It may even pull back a little bit here. But, well, for you to understand, this area deserts here. The deceased were inhabited historically. The Negev, much less the Astonals, who came from Europe, right? They colonized Palestine. I don't know if it's an area historically inhabited by Arabs, a specific kind of Arabs, the Bedouin Arabs. Why did the United States insist that the Negev be incorporated into the state of Israel? For simple reasons, it prevented land connection between Grave and Africa so as to harm the Europeans. Sure, a lot. The United States has no allies. The United States has no friends. The United States has an interest in harming the Europeans and even more so the Soviets. And it is also the Chinese to prevent these Iranian peoples from having direct contact with Africa and Africa from having contact with them. They created the state of Israel with these borders here, which were not Palestinian territories and never were territories inhabited by us. Astanaz, huh? Just remembering that, oh, the ancient Hebrews. I know that the ancient Hebrews were the ancestors, and the Palestinians have already demonstrated this in our lives. The ancient Hebrews were the ancestors of the Palestinians, not the Astanates. The Astanates are basically European with a background, right? Iranian public DNA. Makes sense because the Oaks were a public people and the Iranians were the founders of Judaism, right? Judaism did not arise in Palestine. Judaism was created in Persia. The original religion of the Hebrew people was Yahvism, not Judaism. Judaism with Yahvism was polytheistic, just like all Canaanite religions, right? Judaism was a monotheistic religion created in Iran by the elites. Hebrews, who had been displaced during the Babylonian captivity, was then a region created in Iran. They had that Ashkenazi. In their ancient DNA, they have Turkish blood, ancient Iranian Kaja. P.S. Because of that, right? Now the Palestinians, right, who are the descendants of the ancient Hebrews, they are from the Canaanite peoples. Here you had the Ammonites, the Arabs, also called, saying in Matthew at the time that, oh, here was Ammon. Jordan is where today, where in the past, right? It was Ammon. This here was Ammon, the Ammonites. This here was in Matthew, who are the Arabs, right? The issues of the Arabs are the Nabateans. The Nabateans were Atribuara. Then the Namanites no longer exist. But the Nabateans exist because the Nabateans were attributed, and therefore the Nabateans were the Arabs. Perfect then. The Arabs inhabited not only the ancient one in Mateia, this here is the ancient one in Mateia, this here is the ancient one in Mateia. Since they inhabited this region here in the Sinai Peninsula, including the Negami Desert, then this here is even an Arab ancestor. The Palestinians are not Arabs. They speak the Arabic language, culturally has connection with the Arabs, but they are not Arabs genetically. They belong to the canal stock, just like the ancient Phoenicians. The right ones, current Lebanese, the Zixos, here they are, the Hebrews, and they're also a very important people, right? In ancient times, which gave the language spoken by Assyrians into Babylonians and also Chaldeans, what language did these people speak? Aramaic, Aran, was that here? Ancient Syria was Aran. Aran here, Aran, the Arameans. Here, baby, the Ammonites, here the Matthews, here the ancient Palestinians, right? It has the name, so there is the Palestinian historical reference of the idea. I don't know what. Palestine was a name given after the destruction of Judea. Lie, you have reference to the name Palestine among the ancient Egyptians more than 4,000 years ago. Something that liars don't tell you. What they conveniently forget is that the events had written down in historical records as the events called Palestine, guess, Palestine. They were an ancient Palestinian valley of Palestine, right? Palestinians have nothing to do with Philistines. The Pistians are the sea peoples. So the Philistines came from a region, right? From a region here came the Philistines. The Pistis are people of the sea. Philistine has nothing to do with Palestine. Palestine was the name of the ancient Egyptians 4,000 years ago. 1,000 years before the idea appeared, gave a geographical region. Oh, Palestine was an invented name, Roman, blah, blah, blah. It's another one of their lies. The fact I want to demonstrate here is that the so-called Canaanite peoples, the Nabateans, not because the Nabateans were Arabs, were cousins, the Canaanites, but not brother. Peoples Canaherovero, the Ixus, the Phoenicians, the Arameans, and the Ananites. These were the scoundrel peoples, scoundrel tribes, right? Here they were Arabs. So it's Sinai's prison, which has never even been a bike. It was complicated, a little bit of time in the century and a half. But essentially, this here has always been This is the original inhabitant by deductions, right? Why was it uncharged to the state? Why was it incorporated into the state of Vela again? Explaining to prevent the land connection between Eurasia and Africa, isolating Africa from Eurasia, isolating Africa from much needed resources, much needed investments, much needed infrastructure, and preventing Europe, direct trade with Africa. He urging the Soviet Union to have any external contact with Africa, and he too. So even if the Americans, Ball, did not take China very seriously. So when I came to say years ago that Palestine is a Chinese problem, it's not because the Chinese are kind people who are concerned about Palestinian oppression. No. This is a practical question because that is already a problem that China has to solve. As long as Israel exists, the land connection between Asia and Africa will be impossible. The Belt and New High Silk Road initiative will never be able to enter Africa and take advantage of Africa's formidable natural energy, moral, agricultural resources, as long as there was the state created by the shareholder angles here, right? So it's not because China is kind. It's because she needs an open passage between Asians. It's not because Russia is kind. It's because it needs a connection with the Indian Council. So we're talking about kind people in Asia. There is no parvance. Understand that. There's this Disney nonsense, this brat, Marvel, this brat, said comics, this superhero imbecility, this Tarzan syndrome of heads that we see. They are commercial interests. They are practical, pragmatic interests. Above, one needs Iran's natural energy resources, so she will defend Iran. And above, too, perhaps it is even more important that one needs a land connection between Bras and Africa. The Israeli problem is a Chinese problem. The Russian Federation has two powers. First, the state of Israel recently engaged in acts of tractorism against the Russian Federation, right? And more than once, Israel supported Ukraine. Israel supported the tractorial attack on Crocus. The method the Israelis used to try to overthrow the Iranian regime is basically identical to the method the Ukrainians used. To destroy the 5 Russian planes, that is, the media would govern itself as if it were 41. So it is obvious that there is a connection between Israel and Ukraine, between Western-sponsored tractorism and Israel. And what happens in Russia? You too? What happens in Iran then? Of course, Russia is the enemy of international tractoring, but it essentially needs a passage to the Indian Ocean. So Russia, China support Iran. For pragmatic needs, for pragmatism, for practical needs, you know. I don't expect that declaratory journalism. I don't expect the point to go from the night mature talk, even babysitting. No, don't expect that, Comrade Xi Jinping. They do not practice geopolitics of statements. They even defend the interests of the people they govern. First of all, Russia defends the Russians, China defends the Chinese. Is it in Russia's interest to have access to the Indian Ocean? Is it in China's interest to expand the Central Road to Africa initiative? Is it in China's interest to continue to have energy and fuels, oil and natural gas especially? Yes, it is. So it's self-interest. It has nothing to do with Tarzan syndrome. I know people love to be pessimistic, right? Saying they are realistic. I already told you that this disgusts me, right? You know, people are, no, I'm not pessimistic. I'm realistic. Like he's saying that, oh, if you think the girl is going to help Iran, you're not realistic. Then you're what's a dreamer. If you think China will help Iran, you're not realistic. You're what an asshole. Those annoying people. I don't have much tolerance with this passive aggressive style. Oh, I'm a realist. I'm not cheering. Like whoever says you're cheering knows that in reality, it's an exclusive thing of mine that I'm criticizing you. You know, I really have a problem with this type of people, and my tolerance is very small with this type of posture, you know? Fifth columnism, always communism, and this passive aggressive AI. So I am the realist, only I'm organizing the facts. So the facts are deputies. By geography, the Russian Federation needs access to the Indian Ocean and the Persian Gulf. China needs Iran's natural and energy resources, and China needs a land connection between Asians. So who was looking for, who was wanting, right? 111 pragmatic reason. For what? The Russian Federation and the People's Republic of China supported Iran, right? It's not Tarzan syndrome. It's not Tarzan syndrome. We're talking about Tarzan syndrome. It is a pragmatic motive with practical action. It is a legitimate economic interest, and in the way the West likes it, even selfish. Yeah, she doesn't want a man. I want to be a moral authority. Don't forget this nonsense. Forget this nonsense. It's a pragmatic action. It's a pragmatic motive. That's why China isn't even 1,000 or so kilometers away, right? 1,100 kilometers from Iran. Will we review again the distance that separates Russia from Iran? Let's go, right? Let's look at the distance that separates Russia from Iran. Russia's extreme south was Iran's extreme north, 163 kilometers, 3 MRI. Russia is 100 miles from Iran. It's difficult. Russia, Judah, Iran. No, it's not. For example, it is even can help with the Navy through the from the Caspian Sea. You want a Caspian Sea? It can handle the army, it can handle the aerospace forces, it can help with the artillery forces. Now, but Russia, people declared, really serves to know if this declaratory geopolitics, this declaratory journalism, isn't that what others do with their lives? There's nothing else to do, understand? There's a lot more to do than that. These statements, this journalism here, 170 kilometers away, in fact, this journalism of statements, that's not what Russia does, is it? Russia is essentially pragmatic, just as China is also essentially pragmatic. The Chinese want trade, energy, and resources. The Russians want access. They are pragmatic models. It is selfish the way the West spoke. It likes it, so they will defend Iran, especially because if Iran falls, it evidently harms China enormously. It harms Russia enormously. It harms India enormously too. But India is in a complicated phase of existence, isn't it? India is in a very difficult phase of its existence, complicated. Modi still doesn't understand some things, but he doesn't really understand them. But Pakistan does. Which is surprising, huh? We formalize the things that Pakistan has understood are at stake, but India, which is a member of the BRICS commodity, is an intelligent guy who was sensible until a month ago. He has suddenly gone into a spiral of madness since he has committed a huge series of mistakes since the events surrounding the Pakistan-sponsored terrorist attack. Amazing how a country comes out of the position of being right, but was already right, but did things in such a wrong way that now it is wrong, takes advantage of an extremely favorable situation and turns it into the stove that put Modi in bad pensions, which belongs. Totally unnecessary, totally unnecessary. But that's what happened, right? That's what happened, unfortunately. I said lose, but we believe he still finds himself. That's normal, right? This is normal. This is normal to happen. It's like one of a human beings, servant, right? So let's ignore India for now from this equation, and let's try to understand why Sine Russia will and are already helping Iran in case Iran needs it. Besides, we have this country here, right? The Democratic People's Republic of Korea stands with Iran and does not give up. You have your own reasons too, don't you? Comrade Kim has his own reasons. Support for Islam in general. We have Pakistan, Bangladesh, Indonesia, Malaysia also on the Iranian side. In any case, more than what is on the Iranian side, it is very difficult to post. In favor of the legitimate entity, not least because from a technical point of view, it was Israel that attacked Iran using a crude argument that it was a preventive defense, using as the IE president's near criminal reports, right? Using the almost criminal reports, the IE president did lie about Iran. Handing over the location of Iranian bases, giving the names of Iranian scientists. As soon as Israel found out who hit and where hit, was fun to participate. Traitor, the treacherous, treacherous, in the head of the AIA, a certain International Atomic Energy Agency, was operating by transferring sensitive information from Iran illegally to the State of Israel. So the thing, and the Arabs, it's in a lot, and just the text itself. The text, he's not even there. He comes behind the scenes, usually through the United Arab Emirates, right? Normally, the United Arab Emirates is the country where the United Arab Emirates is the country of operation. It is. Internationally and publicly in favor of the interests of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So the UAE has expressed support for Iran, public support, and well, it means AA Arabia is supporting Iran. Oh, but I'm not seeing statement anymore about it. Forget this nonsense, this declaratory journalism business, he said. Declaratory is Western nonsense. That's not how Asians work. Very old preservations that dominate the acid of subtlety, the said by the unsaid. That's the perfect question. So basically, this is not 11 very big video. It's a video that I just intend to explain the reasons why it's neither Russian Federation nor the People's Republic of China. Are we leaving Iran? Are they going to let Iran be conquered, whether by Israel, whether by the United States or by any NATO country? When it can be conquered, it also involves not leaving Iran. It's being a victim of a color revolution, of regime change. That would be catastrophic for both the Russians and the Chinese. And that's what it's about. Self-interest doesn't have Tarzan syndrome, you know? It doesn't have that saving spirit. It doesn't have heroism. Chinese interests are Russian interests. Iran must not fall to the West. That's what it's about. I'm not going to say it's okay, but it's going to be okay. So everybody, have a great afternoon. Thank you very much.